Hi. How is everyone doing? Whew. Oh my gosh. What a week, huh? I think it's time to take my hair down. Oh, Sunday fun day. You'll get your groceries so you don't have to leave your warm, cozy house tomorrow because it's going to be freezing. Hmm. Well, I just had some absolutely delicious strawberries, and I'm very excited about them. And I'm gonna put my hair back up because it's cozy like that. Um, Not only were they good strawberries, but they were good strawberry greens. I love eating the strawberry greens. They're so good for you. So yeah, so here we are. We're about to start the second chapter of Sugar Blues. Thanks for hanging out with me. Um, Yeah, I have a fun goal today of 10 super chats, which is like really probably unreachable because I've only gotten like a couple in my whole YouTube um experience. But you never know. And what will I give you guys if I get that goal? I will give you guys a dance party, a live dance party. Maybe I'll invite a couple of besties over and we'll have a live dance party streamed. What do you think about that? I think it sounds pretty fun. Pardon me. I have some tea over here, some stress ease tea. All right, here we go. Into chapter 2, the mark of Cain. If you did not do chapter 1, then you might want to check that out. I also skipped to chapter 10. Who knows why? Things just happen. All right, the mark of Cain. Nostalgia is as old as Adam. Whenever earning our bread by the sweat of our brow gets to be too much, we are inclined, like Adam, to long for the good old days. The notion of a heavenly pastoral past crops up in mythology the world around. Like all universal myths, it lurks as something deep in the memory of the human race. Paradise Lost of the book of Genesis, the golden age of Taoism and Buddhism, perhaps the Garden of Eden, was more than a piece of Middle East real estate. That's a funny way to say it. Perhaps it once encompassed much of this planet, from the Polynesian islands to Shangri-La in Tibet. It is impossible not to dream about what it must have been like. The Bible provides some clues. First of all, no sweat. Man lived naturally off the bounty of nature. Second, no cities. The word civilization means nothing more or less than the art of city living. In the good old days, there was none of that. Third, no sickness. Biblical, ancient, oriental, and anatomical charts not only record the acupuncture meridians, but also what are called beauty marks in the West, the dark spots that appear on the body at birth or later. A mark at 4 o'clock beneath the right eye of the male or at 8 o'clock beneath the left eye of the female indicated the catastrophic probability of death by sickness. When these charts were compiled thousands of years ago, natural death, just going to sleep without waking up, was the normal way to die. Last but not least, refined sugar did not form part of the human diet. People did have almonds and chestnuts and walnuts and pistachio, apples and figs and grapes and olives and mulberries, barley and wheat and rye and millet, cucumbers and melon and carob and mustard, and mint and onion and anise and garlic and leeks, lentils and milk and honey, and a multitude of natural goodies. All of these were brimming with natural sugars, even ginseng, but no man refined sugar. The rediscovery of ginseng in our time coincides with the rediscovery of China and acupuncture. News magazines sometimes called it a red Chinese herb. Few remember that our grandparents learned about its magic properties from the Indians of the North American continent and used it with squirrel brains to treat gunshot wounds in the Old West. Ew. From the Garden of Eden through thousands of years, what we call sugar was unknown to man. He evolved and survived without it. None of the ancient books make mention of it. Mosaic Law, the Code of Manu, the I Ching, the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Internal Medicine, the New Testament, the Quran. The prophets tell us a few things about the status of sweet cane in ancient times. It was a rare luxury imported from afar and very expensive. What else they did with it, except offer it up as a sacrifice, we can only surmise. The far country of the sweet cane came from may have been India or Hawaii. Polynesian myths and legends make much of the sweet cane. There is evidence that China exacted tribute from India in the form of imported sweet cane. It seems to have been native to tropical climes. If countries outside the tropical belt tried to cultivate it, they apparently had little success. A passage in Atharva Veda is a paean to sweetness. I have crowned thee with a shooting sweet cane, so that thou shalt not be averse to me. In ancient India, the sacred cows may have chewed on it, along with hemp. The Indians grew it in their backyards and started chewing on it themselves for its sweetness. The sweet cane was cultivated with great labor by husbandmen who bruise it when ripe in mortars. Set the juice in a vessel until concreted in form like a snow or white salt. That's a quote. The sweet cane, quote, was cultivated with great labor by husbandmen who bruise it when ripe in mortars. Set the juice in a vessel until concreted in form like snow or white salt. I think they're talking about lime putty. Hold on. Hold on. I just heard something in the other room. What was that noise? I don't know. All right. The scrapings were taken with chapati bread or with pottage. A decade later or so, they began pressing the cane and drinking the juice in the same way that the American Indians tapped the maple trees to make syrup. Apple cider or a toddy from the date palm have to be drunk while fresh. So did the sweet juice from the sweet cane. It was as fragile as cider and would not keep without fermenting. The Greeks had no word for it. When Nearchus, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, admiral in the service of Alexander the Great, sailed down the Indus to explore the East Indies in 325 BC, he described it as a kind of honey growing in canes or reeds. Common soldiers of Alexander the Great found natives of the Indus Valley partaking of sweet cane juice as a fermented drink. It turns up in other Greek and Roman accounts, continually compared to the basic staples of the time, honey and salt. Sometimes it was called Indian salt or honey without bees, and imported in small quantities at enormous cost. Herodotus called it manufactured honey, and Pliny called it honey from the cane. It was used, like honey, as a medicine. It took a Roman writer of Nero's time to record its Latin name, saccharum. Dioscorides described it as a sort of concreted honey, which is called saccharum, found in canes in India and Arabia Felix. It is in consistence like salts and brittle between the teeth. The School of Medicine and Pharmacology at the University of Dijon-Dissapur, the pride of the Persian Empire, is credited with the research and development of a process for solidifying and refining the juice of the cane into solid form that would last without fermenting. Transportation and trade were now possible. This happened sometime after 600 AD, when the Persians began growing sweet cane on their own. Tang China imported loaves of stone honey from Bukhara, where careful skimming of the liquid and the addition of milk contributed to the whiteness of this imperial luxury. A piece of saccharum was considered a rare and precious miracle drug of its time, heavily in demand in time of plague and pestilence. I wonder what did they say it was medicine for? While the medieval Latin name for a medical morsel of the precious substance came to be appropriated later for a sugar substitute in the West, the original Sanskrit word for morsel or piece of anything became permanently attached to Indian salt and survived transition through the languages of the Muslim Empire and the Latin tongues. The Sanskrit khanda became the English candy. The Persian Empire rose and fell, as empires always do. When the armies of Islam overran them, one of the trophies of victory was the secret for processing sweet cane into medicine. The Werner von Braun of Baghdad may have been brought to Mecca. It wasn't long before the Arabs took over the saccharum business. When Muhammad sickened with fever and died, his Khalifa or successor set out, with the faith that moves mountains, to subjugate the whole world with an army of a few thousand Arabs, with military campaigns among the most brilliant in the world's history. He came within an ace of succeeding. Within 125 years, Islam expanded from the Indus River to the Atlantic and Spain, from Kashmir to Upper Egypt. The conquering caliph had ridden to Jerusalem with a bag of barley, a bag of dates, and a water skin. One can read stories about a successor, Umayyad Caliph Walid II, who mocked at the Quran, wore fancy outfits, ate pork, drank wine, neglected his prayers, and developed a taste for sugared drinks. The sauce of the Saracens became the pause that refreshes. Arab armies of occupation took with them the rice grains from Persia and the cuttings of the sweet cane that the Persians had found in India. It was more practical to plant young sugar cane than import the end product. Islam soon discovered many new diseases and, perforce, divorced science from religion. Great and vital strides were made in medicine and surgery. They used fetich drugs. Oh, they used anesthetics, initiated the science of chemistry, discovered the concept of zero. Isn't there like a conspiracy that zero doesn't exist or something? Anyway, rediscovered algebra, advanced in astronomy, discovered alcohol, produced fantastic work in metal and textiles, glass, pottery, and leatherwork, and manufactured paper after the fashion of the Chinese. Of all their contributions to Western civilization, perhaps those of paper and sugar were eventually to have the greatest impact. Pretty sure that paper was him. It is tempting to wonder from eyewitness reports that turn up later what role sugar played in the decline of the Arab Empire. In the Quran, the sacred book of Prophet Elijah Muhammad, sugar is not mentioned, but the heirs of the prophet are probably the first conquerors in history to have produced enough sugar to furnish both courts and troops with candy and sugared drinks. Sounds like our capital filled with soda. An early European observer credits the widespread use of sugar by Arab desert fighters as the reason for their loss of cutting edge. Leonard Rowoff is the German botanist who gave his name to the plant Rowoffia serpentina. The derivatives of the plant are still in use today as sedatives and tranquilizers. Rowoff made voyages in the lands of the Sultan through Libya and Tripoli. His journals, published in 1573, contain timeless military intelligence. The Turks and Moors cut off one piece of sugar after another, and so chew and eat them openly everywhere in the street without shame. In this way, they accustom themselves to gluttony and are no longer the intrepid fighters they have formerly been. I'll be right back. Oh, I'm a sleepy head. All right, where are we? Rowoff viewed sugar addiction among the Sultan's armies in much the same way as modern observers discovering American forces in Asia hooked on heroin and marijuana. The Turks use themselves to gluttony and are no more so free and courageous to go against their enemies to fight as they had been in former ages. This may be the first recorded warning from the scientific community on the subject of sugar abuse and its observed consequences. The word scientist was not to be coined until 1840. The test tube and the laboratory were a good way off, but Rowoff seems to have had the insight to view human beings as a whole men in an environment with a history rather than a litany of labeled symptoms. Wow, so they're saying that there's documented the writing, the Turks and Moors cut off one piece of sugar after another and chewed it and eat them openly on the street without shame. They accustomed themselves to gluttony and are no longer the intrepid fighters that they had formerly been. So there is documented evidence of sugar destroying an army. That's pretty bad. And there's documented, in the same sense of cannabis. So, yeah. We need to tell Perkle that, because he was saying sugar is not as dangerous as cannabis. Anyway, all right. After the rise of Islam, sugar became potent political stuff. Men would sell their very souls for it. Whoa! The same fate that had crippled Arab conquerors was now to afflict their Christian adversaries. Dang. Wow. En route to wrest the holy places from the grip of the Sultan, the Crusaders soon acquire a taste for the sauce of the Saracens. Saracen sauce, aka sugar. Some of them wanted only to languish in the land of the infidels until they could get their fill of fermented cane juice and sugar candy. European rulers discovered that their ambassadors at the Egyptian court were being corrupted by the sugar habit and won over by bribes of costly spices and sugar. Some had to be withdrawn. The last major crusade ended in 1204. A few years later, the Fourth Lateran Council assembled in Rome to plan crusades against heretics and Jews. Then, in 1306, Pope Clement V, in exile at Avignon, received an appeal for a renewal of the Crusades of the good old days. Copies of the appeal went to the King of France, England, and Sicily. This early diplomatic position paper outlined a southern sugar strategy for bringing the wily Saracens to heel. So they had a strategy to use sugar to win the war? Wow. They call it crippling. In the land of the Sultan, sugar grows in great quantities, and from it, the sultans draw large incomes and taxes. If the Christians could seize these lands, great injury would be inflicted on the Sultan, and at the same time, Christendom would be wholly supplied from Cyprus. Sugar is also grown in the Morea, Malta, and Sicily, and it would grow in other Christian lands if cultivated there. As regards Christendom, no harm would follow. That's all in quotes. That's the diplomatic position paper outlining a sugar strategy for bringing the wily Saracens to heel, like to wither. Let's read it one more time. In the land of the Sultan, sugar grows in great quantities, and from it the sultans draw large incomes and taxes. If the Christians could seize these lands, great injury would be inflicted on the Sultan, and at the same time Christendom would be wholly supplied from Cyprus. Sugar is also grown in the Morea, Malta, and Sicily, and it would grow in other Christian lands if cultivated there. As regards Christendom, no harm would follow. So they're kind of saying that they can bring them to heel by taking their sugar and their tax money, something like that, maybe. In the face of serpentine assurances such as this, Christendom took a big bite of the forbidden fruit. What followed was 7 centuries in which the 7 deadly sins flourished across the 7 seas, leaving a trail of slavery, genocide, and organized crime. So are they saying that sugar is the forbidden fruit that causes every sin? Oh my gosh. That's quite a rebuttal. British historian Noel Dear says flatly, it will be no exaggeration to put the tale and toll of the slave trade at 20 million Africans, of which 2/3 are to be charged against sugar. Oh my gosh. Wait, they're either saying that they can be paid for with sugar, or they're like in trouble for eating sugar. Charged like against cannabis. Anyway, in the first round of the European sugar race, the Portuguese were out in front. The Saracens, I feel so like uncultured that I don't know how to pronounce the Saracens. I think this chapter is, I think I'm only going to do half this chapter right now because I'm sleepy. We'll finish it another time. Portuguese were out in front. The Saracens had introduced cultivation of the sugar cane to the Iberian Peninsula during their occupation. Great cane plantations were set up in Valencia and Granada. Henry the Navigator of Portugal explored the west coast of Africa in searching for fields of sugarcane outside Arab dominion. He didn't find the cane fields he was looking for, but he did discover plenty of black bodies acclimated to slave in the tropical zones where the cane would flourish. In 1444, Henry took 235 Negroes from Lagos to Seville, where they were sold into slavery. That was the beginning. All right, I'm going to stop there. I think. Whoa. Okay, I'm just going to do like a couple more paragraphs. 10 years later, the Pope was induced to extend his blessing to the slave traffic. Papal authority, oh my God, that sounds like PayPal. It's just missing the Y. Was extended to attack, subject, and reduce to slavery the Saracens, pagans, and other enemies of Christ. The ostensible rationale of Christianism abroad was the same one that justified hounding of heretics and Jews at home to save their souls. The fact that the sweat of black brows could tend the new fields of sugarcane in Madeira and the Canary Isles was a provincial fringe benefit for the Portuguese Empire. For centuries, the scriptures were systematically perverted to provide solace for slave-holding Christian sugar pushers. In his prophetic 1923 work, quote-unquote, Cain, the Black American poet Jean Toomer wrote it on the wall for all time. The sin, what's fixed against the white folks, they made the Bible lie. Sugar and slavery were two sides of the coin of the Portuguese realm. Wow. So literally, the slaves were tilling the sugar for slavery and lack and torture and the sins. And I feel like with the hemp revival, with the hemp revolution, we can now turn that around, and instead of being slaves, we can be growing hemp for prosperity and abundance. Sugar and slavery were two sides of the coin of the Portuguese realm. By 1456, Portugal had control of the European sugar trade. However, Spain was not far behind. When the Moors were expelled from Spain, they left behind cane fields in Granada and Andalusia. On his second voyage to the New World in 1493, Christopher Columbus took along some hunks of sugarcane at the suggestion of Queen Isabella. In his book, composed during that voyage, Peter Martyr claims the explorers found sugarcane growing in the islands of Hispaniola. Columbus suggested transporting West Indian natives to work in the Spanish sugarcane plantations. Isabella was against it. When Columbus sent 2 boatloads of slaves back to Spain, the Queen ordered them returned. Ugh. I'm just thinking about the horrible journeys in the boats. After her death, King Ferdinand consented to recruit the first large contingent of African slaves needed in the burgeoning Spanish sugar industry in 1510. Literally, the sugar industry was growing side by side with slavery. How awful. This is a very long chapter. All right, so we're going to finish next time. Boom. All right, who knows when next time will be. Love you guys. Thanks for the like, the share, the support, and for being y'all.